Welcome back to Vaulted by Proof. This is episode number 4, and we have a special show today. We have a Proof reunion. We have the one and only, the man with the math, NFT statistics. Wow, confetti. And then we have Raven, amazing art blocks artist, engineer, and podcaster. Welcome, Raven. Let's go. We talked about what it means to be a creator and how you can experiment with brand new mechanics using some of the L2s that we're seeing.
Just with Blur, they haven't been healthy for the space on the art side, and I just don't know how healthy they are for the ecosystem as a whole.
And then we go into their vaults, as we always do.
There's no rarity, there's no features, which is an interesting choice.
Taking the other side on that trade just there.
This was such a fun episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to Vaulted by Proof. I'm Eli Scheinman, Director of Art at Proof and Yuga Labs. We have a Proof reunion show, more or less, today. I'm really excited. We have Raven, amazing art blocks artist, an engineer, a podcaster. Welcome, Raven. Let's go.
Let's do it.
And then I have the one and only, the man with the math, NFT statistics, keeping the NFT in there. What's up, man? Wow, confetti.
Confetti, bunny ears. Eli, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Well, it's great to have both of you on the show. We all got to work together, spend some time in person over the last couple of years. So we've got a bit of a reunion here. You guys both have great takes on the space. So I'm excited to dig in. Let's do something we always like to do at the top of the show, which is share one piece of work from something new or recent that you both collected or had your eye on. Raven, let me start with you. Give us something.
Sure. So, lately I just been, going back to my childhood really. And it's funny, becoming Ash Ketchum over here, trying to catch all the Pokemon, because I found out about this, this service called Courtyard, which I guess is backed by Y Combinator, has been around for a while. But it basically is they partner with Brinks to, basically vault cards inside of a Brinks vault. They issue NFTs, and then you can trade those NFTs around, and you can get, redeem them at any time for the actual cards. So I'm going to share my screen really quick and just show you.
Great.
But this is the site, and one thing they have for the degens here is just like they have this vending machine as well that you can pay $25 or $250, and it will give you a random graded cards out of here, and it tells you the odds down here of what you can get out. And they also offer a 75% buyback on the card of the fair market value. So you instantly have some liquidity if you want to sell it back. But I think it's just a really cool concept of, they have sports cards on here, and, just a way to collect that you don't have to hold all this stuff in your house, but still be able to trade it. And, it's based on Polygon. And, I think this is just something that I think is really cool, and I could see to extend to, art and maybe watches and all different types of collectibles. So I think it's like a cool platform that I've been checking out recently.
I love it. Great share, Raven. Sam, what do you have for us?
So I have not been looking that much at the art markets lately, and it's just because, as anyone who follows me on X knows, I've gotten into I got into Blast for a while. Obviously, that did not go as well as I hoped it would, but that was my focus for a long time. And during that period, I also got into refundable NFTs, and there were a few artists that kind of made their way over there. I personally launched my own collection, which was a lot of fun and just a cool thing to do. But then also, Bold Leonidas has a couple really interesting collections over there. They're not that interesting in the sense that it's one piece with a ton of different editions. But I think they made some work that I thought was kind of funny. It was kind of sarcastic and interesting. And overall, I just appreciate a few of the artists who were willing to take that experiment on. And so Bold, I bought a few of Bold's editions. I bought OSF's edition. So I'd say that's kind of the closest thing I bought to art NFTs recently.
Yeah, very cool. Well, let's, Sam, use that segue to talk a little bit more about Sam, the creator. You mentioned it. You released your own art collection. You'd been sharing these photographs on Twitter, these GM posts great photography. I know you've been all over the world, and you had a previous life as a photographer at Uber, working on major campaigns there. But let's talk about your experience as a creator. Give us some details about the mechanics that were interesting there. What did you learn from the creator perspective?
For sure. So I was originally, I just wanted to try out the blast mechanism, and for me, and I think for most people, like the best way to learn is to do, and the best way to teach is to do, and to give people a chance to buy stuff. So for me, I was going to launch a collection with all those iPhone photos that I take, when I post a GM shot in the morning, which I do maybe 3 or 4 times a week. But then as I started going, I was like, you know what, forget that. I'm just going to put my favorite photos I've ever taken into a collection. And I went back and looked at all the photos I took, mainly from 2008 to 2013 or so, and built a collection of a little bit more than 200 images. And I launched it on Blast as a refundable NFT. And the basic mechanic of it is that people pay half of an ETH, so 0.5 ETH. It's through a platform called Blaster. But then, which is certainly punchy for someone like me putting out a first collection. But the kicker is that people can always refund the piece for 0.5 ETH. So you never lose your money. If you mint it, you're always going to be able to get that 0.5 ETH back. So I launched that, have all sorts of takeaways, but it's been a lot of fun. It's still out there. I think 4 or 5 of them traded today.
Sam, let me ask you, if it's refundable, how does it work from the creator perspective to have any sort of upside or any revenue generation in that mechanic?
Sure. So there are 2 ways that you make money as a creator. One is that when people put their money into the project, so if they let's say I put 100, I mint 200 at half of 1 ETH. That's 100 ETH that is earning 3 to 4% per year. So that means that and that yield on that money goes to me. Because Blast has a native yield of 3 to 4% that all money's always earning. If someone puts 0.5 ETH in, then they are not earning that yield for themselves. That actually goes to the creator. So that, like I said, that's 3 to 4%, or that's 3 to 4 ETH that I make over the course of the year from that native yield. And then the second piece is royalties on Blur. The stuff on Blast does trade on Blur, and it gets half of 1% of a royalty. So it's certainly nothing all that crazy, certainly nothing compared to what royalties used to be, but over time it adds up. I'd say throughout the whole process of doing this for a month or 2, I've probably made 1 to 2 ETH. So it has not been certainly nothing that would get a lot of the artists super excited. But if you're doing 1,000 ETH project, or the way that people have gone after this is they've done additions with tons of additions.
Sure.
And through that, you can really get that the amount of money locked in your contract a lot higher, earn more yield. And the other thing that's cool about this is that as Blast got more and more attention to it, different airdrops or different coins and stuff would drop tokens to our holders. So people were able to make 10, 15, 20% just from the airdrops they got, as well, from people who wanted to target our holders. So overall, it was kind of fun because it really removed the pressure for me as a creator who's not, I'm not using this as a source of income really. And the last thing I would want is for people to be mad that they lost their money on my NFTs, which is something I think that's hard for a lot of NFT creators. So I didn't have, but the flip side of it is, of course, that I don't make as much.
Sure. And we're looking at a small subset of the collection here. It's amazing. I mean, the diversity of work. You should be very proud. CJ, I'm curious if we dig into this mechanic for another moment. Is this something that's scalable and can be packaged in such a way where maybe it does become something, whether on Blast or a different chain, that creators can explore and apply for themselves? Or what's your perspective there?
Well, I think it's really interesting. And, Sam, kudos to you. Like, I feel like with this project, the pictures are obviously beautiful, but, as well, this mechanic is part of the art itself. And that's something that, I definitely with Dots, I did this project on Arbitrum called Dots that, is ongoing, and, the base unit's out there as an inclusive edition on Prohibition, but then the Dots can be passed into other experiences, and then those inform those downstream experiences. So I feel like, a commonality between kind of my project and your project is using the underlying chain to kind of introduce some sort of mechanic, which I think is really interesting. And I'd like to see more artists to kind of go in that direction and kind of use the blockchain as a medium, right? I think for a long time now we've had, just releasing, whether it's NFTs or, with just static imagery or even generative, on art blocks, we've had that for a while. I think there's some great work that comes out, but I just want to see, and I personally as an artist want to explore, how do we get down to that chain level and introduce completely new mechanics to art. And I think this is a great example of that it's kind of, very clever that you're able to, think of this mechanic that still gets you paid, but like the collectors can get their money back if they're not satisfied, which is amazing.
I love it. And see, CJ Raven, you mentioned your own project, Dots. We were talking just before the show, and you said if you were to release this today, you might actually consider Base as the place to release it.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about Base, why maybe in retrospect that would be the place where you would go with this work.
Yeah, I mean, I love Arbitrum too. I think they have a great chain and a great product, but I think Base has done some really great things that the team has, because of, the fact that from Coinbase, I think one of the biggest things is the fact that they just like free bridging from Coinbase to Base and also to a lot of other chains, to be fair. But, they've made it extremely easy to bridge, where on Arbitrum or any other, these layer twos, you have to pay gas to bridge. And, that can cost money, it also inconveniences the collector a little bit. Sure. But Base really they've kind of deeply coupled Coinbase, the exchange, with Base, and then it done these kind of creative ways where you can use Base to kind of bridge by just sending things into Coinbase and back out again. It's really so smart to get adoption of their chain, and they've also done great marketing as well. So I think they've rocketed up the charts of L2s, and I think they're here to stay for sure. So I'm excited to see what they continue to do. And in the smart wallets too, I don't know if anyone's seen those. I've started playing with them, but you can, basically with the smart wallet, you're able to click in and create a wallet just on your phone without having to save a seed phrase or something. So I think like that's got to be key as we expand this space to, new collectors or people that, are not that tech savvy. I think like, smart wallet is right in that category of it's going to, enable that to happen.
Yeah. Sam, I want to come back to you. I'd be curious. We talked Blast, we talked Base. We know that there are all of these L2s coming onto the scene. What do you think that ultimately means? Like, is it winner take all or winner take some? And there's a couple L2s that ultimately win out for creators. What do you think happens there on the L2 ecosystem side?
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, like launching on Blast, like I did, you are kind of a product of the chain in the sense that, all the collectors, and I want to use some air quotes for the collectors, because you really end up with a lot of farmers who buy your work. I am very thankful though. I had probably 100 to 150 of the 200 pieces never sold, so people who minted them held them. And that was really cool, but that was more me trying to like wrangle people to come try it out. Whereas the incremental player always tends to be like a farmer.
Do you have a problem with that though, Sam? Like, I just feel like I don't know. I just like, me as a creator, I really would be hesitant to put something on Blast. I think it's a really cool mechanic, but just with Blur, like it's like I just feel like they haven't been healthy for the space on the art side, at least. I think on the NFT side, like just historically, I think the downward pressure that has created on the price is you can't get around that, right? And I just don't know how healthy they are for the ecosystem as a whole. Long term. Yeah.
I mean, I've been very vocal that I do like what you end up with is people who want to own your work for a very short horizon for a very specific farming purpose that end up being the ones that own your work. And everyone knows that ultimately these are not the people that are going to be owning your work in a year. So yeah, it gives it for my collection, it's kind of stayed in the 0.5 to 0.6 range, right? So I own a lot of my own stuff, but there's not much price appreciation that's coming with it so far. Like, at least right now, all the revenue I make is from the native yield as well as the royalties on Blur. But like, those royalties on Blur go to zero when the farming season's over. So you're just kind of a product of that. And for me and my purposes, it did what I wanted. For someone who has a more established, but I will say this, I think for OSF, it did a lot of great work, a lot of great from too. Like, his stuff got heavily farmed, but when his royalties are half of 1% and he's doing 1,000 ETH of volume, that's 5 ETH of royalties. It's actually not that bad, So I think for OSF, I think he found a way to actually turn it into a decent revenue generator. But I think his brand is all about being agile, going to what's new, and I don't think it really damages the provenance of his other work at all. But for other people where that's not the core of what they do, it's certainly a bit of a risk. But times like these, I think it's worth trying.
How safe do you feel, that yield is? Like, because I've always been kind of, I haven't dug into this, right? But I've just seen so many DeFi over the years, of advertising different yields and things like that. And it's kind of just backed by, nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's just an inconvenience and layers of staking that, they're basically just like hiding nothing substantial behind it. Do you think that this has legs where it's not like that?
Yeah, I'm not too. I think like kind of a core yield on ETH assets is about 3 to 3.3%. And the way that they get it, that is backed by validators who are like the miner, basically the quote unquote miners of ETH, and all of Blast ETH goes into Lido, and Lido is a quicker way to kind of get exposure to validators. So that's kind of what backs it. I think it'd be interesting if they did some of these sales in USDB. USDB is the Blast version of US dollars. And kind of the yield of US dollar, like crypto is very cash poor, coin rich, and the result is that people do pay a good 6 to 10% to borrow USD as a way of getting leverage on crypto, and that's been pretty consistent. So the USDB is backed by DAI, which is where the 8% yield comes from. Now DAI I think has its own issues. MakerDAO I don't think approaches their stablecoin with the same level of conservatism that they did to get them to where they are. And I think that's one of the bigger risks that underpins Blast as a whole ecosystem, is that any glitch in Maker would be really destructive for Blast. But these yields, I don't think these numbers are out of sync with kind of what not natural, but what the market is presenting in the crypto space right now, because of the validators on ETH and because of what people are paying for leverage on USD, combined with the fact that the risk-free rate on US dollars in the traditional markets is about 5% right now.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. And as you said, CJ, I love to see creators exploring this new territory, exploring new chains and the unique opportunities across them. Let's segue now into our last section of the show here. Let's talk collecting now and close on that note. Raven, I'm going to start with you. Let's go into your vault. I know you're a great collector. You've been here in the space collecting for so long. Share one word or one collection with us that's meaningful, that has some resonance for you.
Definitely. It's hard to pick one, but I think one that I feel is great. And, I think some people have heard of it, but obviously it's been overshadowed by another collection that this artist, released, which is, our good friend Tyler Hobbs. I'm going to share, Incomplete Control, which I own 35 with a couple other people. Raven,
what do you mean by with a couple other people?
Oh, so basically we acquired this, and just a couple friends of mine who want to remain anonymous, but I'm okay with sharing it. But we acquired this piece last year, and we just had conviction in this, and I still do. So, obviously disclosure on that. But I think the one thing about Incomplete Control, which at first, some of the best art that I have come to like in this space, I have almost hated when I first saw it. And this is an example of that. after Fidenza, when this came out, Incomplete Control was released with Bright Moments. It's on chain, there's 100 of them, which is something that, look at Fidenza that has 1,000, the much lower supply. I think it was released to a lot of hype. I think it's sold out. I forget, actually. I think it was like between 30 or 60 ETH. It was somewhere in there. I know it's a big range. I should know my numbers, but maybe Sam knows. But and one big thing was this is the start of Grailers DAO was actually the start at Incomplete Control. They started Grailers DAO by pooling funds to buy, I think, 9 of these, which they still own. But one thing I love about this collection is that it is it's just like it doesn't follow Fidenza. You look at Fidenza and then you look at this and you're like, what happened? Tyler, what are you doing? And it just doesn't have the aesthetic pop feel that Fidenza does, which when I think at first I was like, oh, okay. So like, I don't know if this is as high quality work as Fidenza, but the longer I have sat with Incomplete Control, and especially if you see it printed out large, which is the preferred medium that Tyler likes to display these, it's just beautiful, and it doesn't follow the traditional aesthetics of maybe that Fidenza does. However, it is that to me, it's like that fine wine of Tyler Hobbs that, with time ages well. And I think with the recent acquisitions by, of Tyler's work from San Fran, Museum of Modern Art, and LA, Museum of Modern Art, right? I think they collected a work that was San Francisco did that was very close to this. Actually, it was a derivative of this, like first version of this. And I think I just feel like this piece will age very well. Also, 100. The thing is I like about when it's restrained like that, and there's only 100 of them, is you got to start looking at, and what I like to look at when if I'm going to be putting a good amount of money into something, okay, who are the collectors as well? Okay, there's 100 pieces, and then who are the holders? And I like to look at it as, okay, I'm in this together with those holders. Do I want to be in do I want to be tied to those holders? Are those holders high quality? And when I look through the list of Incomplete Control, I'm like, wow, okay, these are really high quality holders that do not have a short-term outlook and are not going to dump this collection. They're looking for 10, 20-year hot time horizons. You see this one's owned by Bonafide Han, who's, a legendary, Hobbs collector, really is responsible for, Fidenza's rise back in the day. And, I think it's amazing. So that's why I brought it to this show. So,
it's a great selection. And I'll just add one additional thought, which is, the 100 supply also feels like it's appropriate for the algorithm. Like if you look at the diversity of outputs here relative to Fidenza, which has such a wide surface area, right? 100 was probably appropriate through that lens too. It's hard to imagine 1,000 perhaps to have enough diversity. So Tyler always been very thoughtful about supply, algo, the way that those come together for a collection.
No features as well. No features on this as well. There's no rarity, there's no features, which is an interesting choice.
Love it. Okay, now Sam, I know you haven't been doing a lot of collecting, but I've seen that vault over the years. What do you have for us?
First of all, I'm taking the other side on that trade just there. I think that the Fidenza is so unique for 2 reasons. One is that any person can look at a Fidenza. It's the one piece I show people who know nothing about digital art, and they're like, yeah, I really like that. Like each individual piece stands alone so incredibly well. And then the collection of all of them is truly the masterpiece. It's one of the reasons I don't own one, is because to me, what is incredible and magical about the Fidenza is that they're all so uniquely gorgeous, and the way that so many different unique, and I just don't think Incomplete Control does either of those things. I think you're making a provenance bet. I think you're making a provenance bet based on, the fact, like limited, you're betting on Tyler, et cetera. But those two factors of blow you away with the individual and blow you away with the collection, I just don't think that one is in the same ballpark. But that's just my own experience, the way I experience the art, and perhaps that's what makes an art market interesting. The one I was gonna highlight was this piece by Midnight Breeze. This one I personally love. I lived in Asia for 15 years. And when I go through Dutchtide's collection, Midnight Breeze, I just get brought back to so many different experiences I had there. It's like every single person who's been to Asia has a relationship with the 7-Eleven that's all over the place, but then also like the basketball court, island environment, like the shape of the car that's coming in. This one for me really brings me back to Hong Kong, which is where I've lived. I lived there for 15 years. This one here is also my collection, and this one really kind of takes me to some experiences I had in Taiwan. With the stars. And this one here, the last one I'll show you, feels really a lot like Tokyo to me. I also got the chance to meet Dutchtide when I was in Amsterdam about a month ago. Dutchtide invited me and my kids and my wife out to the town he lives in, and we spent a bunch of time together, kind of having dinner. He's someone who, one of the things that's cool about him is he was here for like peak NFT bull market for sure. He took all the money he made and reinvested it back in NFTs, and has another project, another kind of version of this coming out. But he invested all his money back in other artists as well as into his own art. And you're going to see more from him over the next few months. So obviously a very tough market to be bringing more work to market, but that's the investment he's made, someone I love to support. And having got to spend time with Dutchtide in person, just a fantastic ambassador for the space and just a good dude.
I love it. I mean, that's such a common theme and thread, Sam, which is spending time in person with these creators develops this emotional resonance with their work and their minds, their creative practice that's hard to replicate outside of that. So I love that choice. I won't ask you about your username that I just saw on that account, Faster Horse. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. This has been a great conversation. So fun to have you guys both back on the show, and would love to have you back in the future. Sam, where should people find you? Anything you want to share, or anywhere you want to send people? Yeah, I'm at Punk9059 on X, Twitter, whatever you like to call it. And that's the best place to find me. Yeah, DM's open. Sometimes I respond to DMs, but especially if people comment on things that we share in common. That's always a good way to get a response from someone who has DMs full of people trying to do things, scam or whatever. Any DM about things we have in common, definitely the type of thing I respond to, and you can follow me there. And I love it. That's the best. And you promised that after this show, you'd return your name to NFT Stats, right? Yeah. I think I'm going to stick with Stats for a little bit. People call me Stats at events, and especially when I became someone who focused more time on blast commentary than NFT commentary. Sure. I was like, all right, let's just take on the word Stats and see how it goes. Fair enough. And Raven, where would you like people to follow up with you?
Sure. You can get me at R4V3N_art on X or Farcaster or all the socials. R4V3N.art is my website. And also check me out on my podcast, Studio Visit with Raven, which is on all the podcast platforms and YouTube. So check that out.
I want to commend you, Raven. The podcast is great. It's long form conversation, one-on-one, you and artists. Very much worth listening to. So kudos to you, man. It's great content.
Thanks. I'm loving this format as well. So thanks for having me on. Would love to be back.
All right. That's this week's show. Great to have you guys on. We'll see you next week.